how are ya? All of us know at least one person with a really amazing ability. Maybe they have a gift at basketball, or they're just really good at school. And it's likely that you've always known them to be that way. But then there are others who, through some event, suddenly woke up one day with a superhuman ability that they did not have before. Here are 10 people who gained superhuman abilities. Number 10 is a genius from a fight. In 2002, while leaving a karaoke bar in Tacoma, Washington, Jason Padgett was jumped by 2 assailants. Now, unfortunately, they beat him mercilessly and mugged him and even left him with a nasty concussion. But despite that horrible ordeal, it wasn't too long before Padgett started noticing that things were a bit different. Prior to the attack, Jason's math abilities were almost non-existent, but now the subject came naturally. He was even seeing shapes and patterns in everything around him. Padgett was diagnosed with acquired savant syndrome and was drawing complex geometric constructs while having no real understanding of what they even were. Completely baffled, experts encouraged Jason to do the mathematics world a favor and go back to school, which is exactly what he did. As of today, he's an accomplished number theorist, author, and public speaker. Wait, so my terrible math skills can be fixed with a little bumpo to the head? Excuse me. Number 9 is finally like family. For most of her life, 43-year-old Sandi Allen had pursued a life of science, going against the mold of her family, as many of them, particularly her mother and sister, were much more creative than they were logical. But while Sandi was content sticking with her side of the spectrum, fate intervened. She was told that she had a malignant tumor growing in her brain, one which needed to be removed right away to save her life. Doctors had no choice but to operate, taking out part of the poor woman's brain in an attempt to get all of the tumor. However, when she woke up, Allen suddenly saw things differently and turned her life towards being more creative than logical. Out of nowhere, she started creating gorgeous collages and other pieces that she had no chance of making before she had half of her brain taken out. See, you don't have to be very smart to be creative. Oh, we're still recording. Number 8 is memory and paint. In 1965, Italian-born restaurant worker Franco Magnani arrived in San Francisco, delighted to finally be able, after the long war, to be able to see the Golden Gate Bridge and experience everything that the United States has to offer. Unfortunately, what he ended up getting was a pretty serious illness, which had him studying more of the hospital room ceiling than any landmarks. Magnani found himself suffering fevers that brought with them some crazy intense dreams, and a strange ability that he never had before. He could suddenly picture a place in his hometown of Pontito, Italy in his mind, one that he hadn't seen in several years or even since he was a small child, and then draw what he pictured. When compared to the actual photos, the similarities are unreal, and the artistic talent that Franco had suddenly acquired shocked everyone around him. You know, my background is also Italian, except I didn't have anything wrong with me, so I'm still stuck on drawing stick figures. Number 7 is art before science. In 1986, Dr. Ann Adams walked away from her work as a teacher, mathematician, and bench scientist, choosing instead to become a professional artist. The West Vancouver mother had taken some time away from her job to look after her son, who'd been in a serious car accident. But once he was back on his feet, Adams chose not to return to her career and, in a move that surprised her family, focused on her newfound creative undertakings. No one really knew what was going on, but it turned out that doctors discovered that Anne had frontotemporal dementia, which was damaging her frontal and temporal lobes while enhancing her artistic ability. She started losing her ability to speak in 2000, but her art continued to improve drastically right up until her death in 2007. Number 6 is art added through removal. One day in 1988, successful 35-year-old chiropractor Jon Sarkin was out playing golf with a friend at Cape Ann Golf Course in Essex, Massachusetts, when he, out of the blue, suffered a cerebral hemorrhage and subsequent stroke. Later, after a touch-and-go operation, he woke up in the hospital and got some shocking news from his doctors. They explained that they actually had to remove small parts of his brain in order to save him, and that it would take some time to make new connections. Now, eventually, those connections did come, and Sarkin found he changed in some pretty huge ways. All of a sudden, he had urges to draw and sculpt, so he did. But amazingly, today, Jon is always taking on new art projects, and his sudden talent has paid off, as he regularly sells his pieces for more than $10,000. Wait, art can sell for that much, and it's subjective? This is a rare YouTube slipper artwork. I call it the demonetizino. Okay, never mind. $5. Number 5 is a stroke of color. In 1986, 30-year-old engineer Ken Walters was in the prime of his life when one tragedy after another struck, leading to 19 years of a broken back, an empty bank account, and 2 heart attacks. Already miserable, it almost came as par for the course when Walters found out he'd suffered a stroke. But while he laid in a hospital bed, contemplating if he was somehow haunted, Ken suddenly found himself doodling, something that he'd never really done before. It wasn't long before he was fully obsessed with making fantastic artwork using a tablet and a computer, his doctors explaining his newfound creativity as a result of his brain rewiring itself. Walters eventually regained his ability to speak, and now he sells his artwork online and has worked with impressive companies such as EA. Number 4 is a miracle sculptor. As a child, after a severe head injury left Alonzo Clemens with a developmental disorder, he was barely able to feed or even dress himself. However, the Boulder, Colorado student wouldn't be kept down and took up an amazing hobby that, as far as his friends or family could determine, came from the injury itself. Using anything from modeling clay to tar found in the pavement cracks around his school, Alonzo began sculpting animals just from memory in near perfect detail. Flash forward to today, and Clemens can sculpt any animal he's laid his eyes on, even just for a moment, usually in less than an hour. This unbelievable skill hasn't helped the poor man become able to feed himself, but his work is in high demand. He's even sold one of his pieces for $45,000. Okay, that's another person making money off of art. I am in the wrong industry. Number 3 is baseball calculations. On August 17, 1979, 10-year-old Orlando Sorrell was playing baseball with his friends when an accident changed him forever. As Sorrell ran to first base, a rogue ball struck him in the left side of the head. He collapsed to the ground but was soon back up and playing again. However, he neglected to tell his parents, and so he was never given any medical treatment for the injury. Okay, stop. No one there decided to maybe get him checked? What the heck's wrong with people? Okay, anyway, let's continue. However, a headache lingered that eventually stopped. But what that headache left behind was an uncanny ability. Suddenly, Sorrell could solve complex mathematical equations in his head almost instantly. He also gained the ability to recall events in incredible vivid detail. He could tell you where he was, what he was doing, and even what the weather was like on any day after the accident. This is not a joke. I literally have such a bad memory, I can't remember what I did this morning. It's kind of an issue. Ongoing. So this guy's blessed. Number 2 is an electric piano. If there's someone who's lived a truly miraculous life, it's Tony Casoria. One fateful evening in 1994, the then 42-year-old Albany, New York-based physician was at a payphone when lightning struck the structure, sending a bolt through the receiver and straight into Casoria's face. The charge went through him, exiting his left foot, and the doctor collapsed to the pavement. A registered nurse just happened to be the only other person in the area and actually managed to resuscitate him. But but what came back wasn't the same doctor who left. No, he couldn't shoot lightning bolts out of his eyes, sorry to disappoint you. But instead, Sosoria had never really been a fan of music, but a few days after he was electrocuted, he taught himself how to play piano and was soon writing his own compositions. Today, he performs at various venues and is writing a book about the miracles that brought him his gift. And number 1 is Daniel Tammet. Daniel Tammet is a 38-year-old author from London, England, who grew up experiencing epileptic seizures. But instead of breaking him, those events brought him a new form of understanding. Tammet saw shapes and colors where numbers should be from an early age, and quickly developed that into a quick way to process them. He can now solve difficult equations almost as fast as a calculator, and has proven that he can learn a language in less than a week. He's even established his own way of teaching people how to learn their own languages on their own. On top of the linguistic and logical enhancements, the author has also been gifted with incredible memory, at one point breaking the world record when he recited pi to, get this, 22,514 digits. Consider Daniel the closest thing to a real-world X-Man, or X-Lady. It's 2018, we don't discriminate. And that's it. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like it in the future, subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications for my new uploads. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day!